Lately, I've been wondering something. How did Gen X and Gen Jones become everyone's emergency contact? Society talks endlessly about every generation except the one currently holding everything together. When a parent needs help, we're stepping in. When an adult child can't quite make the numbers work, we're stepping in. When a workplace needs more productivity, we're expected to fill the gap there too. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, we're supposed to be saving for retirement, protecting our health, keep working full time, and somehow not crack under the weight of all of it. I don't think Gen X is just the forgotten generation anymore. I think we've become the backup plan. We went from latchkey kids to master keys, opening doors for everybody else. Now let me be clear, because this is not about blaming the people we love, but that's actually what makes this so complicated. Because love was never supposed to become the substitute for systems that don't work anymore. It was never supposed to replace affordable housing. It was never supposed to replace long-term care. It was never supposed to replace stable wages. And it was never supposed to replace a retirement system that people could actually understand. And it was never supposed to replace a healthcare system that doesn't make people afraid to get sick. But here we are. And Gen X and Gen Jones are standing right in the middle of it. Parents on one side, adult children on the other, jobs that just keep asking more and more from us, our own retirement clocks ticking, and everybody needs something. Everybody needs a backup. Everybody needs a plan B. And somehow we became it. Now, the first point I want to cover is this generation the default emergency contact. While the systems around us fall apart, Gen X has become the unofficial insurance policy for multiple other generations. And it starts with the little things. A parent needs help after a fall. And then a prescription needs picking up. And then you have to call the insurance company because their bill, it makes no sense. Then an adult child, hits a financial wall, or a grandchild needs help. Or work suddenly needs the one person who still remembers how things used to be done before the system changed 4 times. And somehow the call keeps coming to us because we answer. Maybe not always cheerfully, but because we're trained to figure things out. At a young age, we become capable, resourceful, independent. And let's be real, being resourceful didn't automatically mean that all of our lives turned out easy. A lot of us, we're still trying to clean up our own messes and recover from our own setbacks and trying to figure out our own futures. But somehow we're expected to be able to absorb everyone else's emergencies as well. And that's the part that nobody wants to talk about. At what point do we become one of the people being taken care of? Okay, the second point is the caregiving system did not prepare us for this. Let's talk about aging parents, because this is hitting a lot of Gen X homes right now. Our parents, they're living longer, and that can be a blessing. But longer life does not always equate to easy life. A lot of people are living many more years, but with mobility issues or memory issues, chronic illnesses, appointments, paperwork, insurance confusion, daily needs that somebody has to help manage. And that somebody is often a Gen Xer. And not always because we're the best choice, but because we're often the only choice. And this isn't just something we're imagining. There was a recent Australian study done on Gen X, and it found that 2/3 said that caring duties were leaving them mentally and emotionally stretched. And only 3% said they were thriving. Now that's Australia, but tell me that doesn't sound familiar. And a lot of older people simply do not have the income or the savings to pay for the actual help they need. Assisted living is expensive. Nursing homes are expensive. Wait till you see the rates to bring in a home health nurse. So what happens? Well, the family becomes the system. That's what happens, which is just a nicer way of saying that someone in the family becomes the unpaid staff. And that's not a small role. That's not just helping out. That is labor. And that's time. Lots of time. And it's mental burden. And it's even lost income potential. And that's stress that follows you into work, into your sleep, into your own future. And again, this is not about not loving your parents. You can love someone deeply and still admit that the setup is brutal. You can be thankful they're still here and still be exhausted by what daily care requires. Both things can be true. And a lot of Gen Xers are living inside that contradiction every single day, often without getting paid for it, often without getting real backup, often without anyone asking them what it's really costing them. Okay, point 3 is adult children. They're not launching into the same world we did. And this is another place where Gen X is becoming the financial shock absorber. When a young adult child can't afford rent, when car insurance is ridiculous, when student loans or underemployment make independence harder, who often steps in? Well, mom and dad, of course. Some are letting adult children move back home. Some are helping with grandchildren because childcare costs are insane. Another broken system. A lot of them are walking into an economy where the math is ugly from the start. But here's the problem. When their math doesn't work, then our math gets worse too. And this is happening at the exact time that we're supposed to be in our highest retirement saving years. And that's the part that makes this so dangerous. Because every dollar going out to rescue someone else is a dollar that's probably not going into our retirement. A dollar that's not compounding, a dollar that's not invested, a dollar not working for your future. And nobody wants to say that out loud because it sounds selfish. But it's not selfish to notice the math. It's not selfish to notice time. It's not selfish to notice that your future is not magically going to fund itself because you were a good person. Because good people still need retirement accounts. Okay, my 4th point is that work still expects Gen X to hold the line. Because while all of that other stuff is happening at home and in our family life, a lot of Gen Xers are still expected to show up and hold everything together at the job. You know, we're old enough and experienced enough to still have all the institutional knowledge, but we're still expected to adapt to every new system, experienced enough to know how things work, but not always senior enough to be listened to. We are the bridge generation at work. So when a workplace needs someone to translate the old way into the new way, there we are. When younger workers need guidance, well, here we are. When dependability matters, that's us. We are the people that remembers the old system. We've learned the new system, and we've trained people on all those systems. And do we get rewarded for that? Maybe sometimes, but most of the time we're just expected to keep doing it with little to zero drama. So we keep adapting, and we keep showing up, and we keep being the responsible one, and that starts to feel familiar, doesn't it? Because it's the same role that we're playing everywhere else. At home, at work, and in families. Gen X is the bridge, the backup, the fixer. Okay, guys, my fifth point is what I want to call the Gen X Subsidy, because it's all of those unpaid caregiving hours, all of those hours that nobody logs, all of the errands that nobody counts, the stress that nobody reimburses. It's what happens when family needs to fill the gaps that health care no longer does, that elder care or housing or work, the things that they don't handle well anymore. And that's the Gen X subsidy. And it's not a government program. It's not a paycheck. It's not a tax credit. Just millions of Gen Xers using their time, their money, their paid time off, their weekends, their sleep, and sanity to keep everybody else from falling through the cracks. And that's why a lot of Gen Xers, they're not just tired. We're burnt to a crisp. We're fed up with being squeezed in every direction. And the danger is that everyone may not even notice how much Gen X is carrying until something or someone breaks. And not because we're weak, but because we're doing too much. And too much is still too much, even when you're good at handling it. And you know what also worries me is that Gen X is very good at disappearing into responsibility. We can be running on fumes and we can say, well, it is what it is. Who else is going to do it? All the while, our lives get smaller and smaller and feeling more invisible. And if we're not careful, we'll spend our strongest remaining years being everybody else's solution and being everybody's answer to broken systems, and arrive at retirement with no solution for ourselves. And that's the part that should wake us up. Because for a lot of us Gen Xers, these next 5 to 10 years, they're very important. But how do you give your time and your resources to your own future when everybody's present keeps catching on fire? And that's the Gen X problem. And I don't think we can afford to pretend that it's just life. Okay, point number 6 is, so what do? I mean, we can't fix the world. And the answer is not to stop caring. That's not realistic. And for most of us, that's not who we are. But part of the answer could be to not confuse love with unlimited access. Loving people doesn't mean giving them unlimited access to your time, money, sleep, health, You can love your parent and still admit that you need help. You can love your adult child and still decline the next money request. And caring about your job doesn't mean letting it consume your life. At some point, Gen X has to start asking harder questions. What will this cost me? Can I keep helping at this level without damaging my own life so that I still have a life when this season is over? And maybe this is the real question. If Gen X is everybody's backup plan, well then what is ours? Because we need one, not someday, but now. We need a retirement backup plan. A plan if work ends before we want or plan for it to. A plan if caregiving expands. A plan if our own health says, you're next. And I know that sounds like a lot because it is. And this is where we have to get very practical. Let's start with the leaks. Where is your money going because someone else is always in crisis? Where is your time disappearing because no one else but you shows up? Where is your energy being drained because you say yes before thinking about the real cost? And where is our own retirement getting pushed back because everybody else's needs feel more urgent? And then ask what can be reduced, what can change, what can be shared, what can be delegated. And here's the one that's huge. What financial or time contribution can the person that's being cared for contribute to their situation? Can the parent compensate you for your time and help? Can the adult child contribute by helping you with your time deficit? Because if we don't put limits around all of the roles that we serve, those roles will eat the rest of our lives. And I don't say that to be dramatic. I say that because a lot of Gen Xers already know that to be true. I know it's true. So no, I don't think Gen X is just the forgotten generation. No, we're the one that everybody assumes will figure it out. And maybe we will. We usually do. But the question now is at what cost? Because retirement doesn't start the day you leave work. It's being built right now in the choices that you make, in the money that we protect, and the health that we preserve, and the boundaries that we finally learn to set. So I'm curious, do you feel this? Do you feel like you're everybody's emergency contact right now? Let me know in the comments. And if this hit a little too close to home, well, you're probably exactly who I made this video for. And I made it for me too. And you know what? We grew up singing, "We are the world." But little did we know we'd be carrying so much of it on our shoulders right now. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.